Welcome to Magic the Flavouring, the Magic the Gathering podcast, where we talk about all things Magic flavour design and lore. I'm your host, Andy Mann, and today on the show, we're going to be talking new Capenna flavour picks with a very special guest, level 5 judge, leader of the Commander Rules Committee, or a leading member, I should say, and Godfather of the EDH format, as well as writer for Star City Games. We have on the show Sheldon Menery. Good afternoon, good morning, Sheldon. How are you?
Good afternoon and good morning, Andy. Thanks for having me.
Not at all, not at all. I'm very excited to talk to you, as I'm sure you get this all the time, with EDH being like one of the most prominent formats in the game. Like it's been something that Nathan and I, when we've been doing this podcast, has meant so much to us, and it's always wonderful to hear your opinions and values about the game. And there's something that I don't always hear you talk about, probably because it's just when you're sort of asked on social media, or at least a lot of the things that you're kind of brought in to comment on, is about the function of the format rather than anything else. Something that because I know you're a big RPG player, and obviously, knowing your work and like reading your writing and kind of just knowing who you are as a person in this game, I kind of have some preconceived notions of what your values are when it comes to flavor and magic lore. But before we kind of go into our flavor picks for the set, like, is magic flavor something that you take into account when you play this game?
I think the answer has to be yes, even if it's indirect.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if we build a tribal deck, aren't we building a flavor deck?
Yeah, 100%.
Right. So I mean, that's more than just functionality. That's flavor, and certainly Commander's the only format where we can have a Dune themed deck, or before, I guess before a couple of sets ago, you couldn't really build a good pirate deck.
Yes,
you had to have Ramirez de Petro as your commander and suck it with some really with pirate ship. And Commander's is the format where those kind of things can exist, and that's all about flavor, right? There's flavor baked into a lot of sets now.
Yeah.
I think the reason Innistrad is the most popular block in Magic is because of its flavor resonance with player base. There's a reason that we keep going back to Innistrad, and it's because people love the vampires and people love Gothic horror, and it's a thing that we can directly relate to. And I think we're going to come, as we talk today, into some of that discussion about Streets of New Capenna, because it's culturally resonant to a lot of Americans, and it's probably one of the first sets that's actually really got an American kind of flavor to it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the past 2 weeks that I've been doing this show, I've been talking to Michelle Rapp, who very kindly came on and spoke to us like a couple of weeks in a row, and it was very apparent to me, like as someone who's like English, but I've got family in different parts of Europe, for example. There are many high fantasy sets that kind of speak to my sensibility, but it is very much about like folklore and kind of like sort of inherited cultures from a long time ago. And even if you're looking at things like, say, Amonkhet or Ixalan, where those are cultures that are relevant to people today, but they're still maybe far enough in the past that you can look at them objectively and kind of study these cultures from like a bird's eye view. Like New Capenna is absolutely something that's like directly viscerally related to Americans today, which is something that I've had to come to appreciate. Like it's only 100 years ago, like in terms of like the 1920s. And that that's there are some people that are around today that were alive during that time. Do you know what I mean? So it's it's kind of wild that this set has been as well received. I kind of thought it was going to get a lot of flack from the player base in terms of its flavor, but it doesn't seem to have done as much.
Yeah, certainly not from what I've seen so far.
Yeah,
right. Everything that I've seen has been excitement, and except there's the one card that has the the 5-color. It's 5-color card and a 5-color activation.
Oh, Meeting of the Five
Yeah,
Families?
immediately 5 families.
Yeah.
That's the only one where people are like, this card is terrible. But otherwise, yeah, otherwise there's been a really positive um, reception for the set, and I think one more time they've done this job of just making thought-provoking cards
hmm
and not making things just generically good.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's very, very true. And again, as we've seen in things like what they started in Strixhaven, they've taken the kind of color groups, like so they did the color pairs in
Hmm.
Strixhaven, where they kind of changed up their style. Here we've obviously got the 3-color shards back again. And
Yep.
they seem to have really, like, although they've kept some core principles of some of them, like Jund is a very sort of sack heavy, like, color, like, try, they have tried to push them in different directions, or at least the individual legends that kind of signpost what these colors
Right.
are doing really interesting things, which, I mean, of course is because EDH is such a big format now. They want these legends to do interesting things that can have like many different pathways. It's really
Yeah.
exciting to see.
The big S format. I think I don't think we have to qualify it anymore.
I think I'm maybe just trying to be polite to all the other
Yeah.
formats that are going on, but yeah, for sure, it is definitely the biggest.
Look at you, Modern. Aren't you adorable?
All right, well, let's jump into it then. So, yeah, today I'm very excited to see what kind of things you've been looking at with a kind of flavor skew, because I know that you've been looking at this set maybe more as a functionality, like as it's been
Mhm.
coming out. I think we've got a few points that we want to talk through, and long-time listeners of this show, every time we do a set review, will probably hear me waffle on about some high-minded nonsense about whatever. But I'm very excited to hear what you have to say. So, I mean, what's your kind of first like flavor pick of this set, I guess?
Um, well, Giada, Font of Hope,
Oh,
the
sure.
angel tribal, like
Yeah,
it's she's a. I mean, I think it's an unfortunate name because always thinking about when I see the card, I just always think about Giada de Laurentiis, who I don't know if she's popular in the UK, but she has a couple of big cooking shows here
sure.
on the Food Network, so she's kind of she's kind of a big star, and I'm like, could have picked a better name. I mean, I guess they were going for that sort of Italianish feel, and
Yeah, for sure.
we can see that reflected in a bunch of the names of the cards. But an angel who's also a mana dork who also um, improves your other angel
Mm.
to your other angels that just like drips with flavor. With again, we talked about tribal being a flavor, being a flavor pick, and this Giada does it for me.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and also like Giada as a character in the stories, just kind of give like a bit of a back sort of to that, actually, like what this legend is a character that's not necessarily combative either. They start off not necessarily knowing who they are, and then throughout the story becomes like a symbol of hope, like the font of hope is in the
Hmm.
name, to the rest of the characters, and it's really well sort of signposted here. And the fact that the font that they're referring to is the fact that the five families are calling her the new font of Halo. So the fact that she kind of pushes mana forward as well is excellent. There are
Hmm.
two art treatments as well. I don't know if you've
Yep,
seen both of them. The one from Scott M. Fisher, which is the hero frames, they're calling it, the hero art deco,
the hero
and then
frame.
the Eric Deschamps version. The Eric Deschamps version, you can't. I mean, whenever WotC releases these images, they never high res quite enough for my taste, but someone did a high res version of this artwork, the Eric Deschamps artwork, and Giada's got like chipped nail polish as well. It's just so well detailed.
Oh,
But
really?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I hadn't
But
noticed
everything,
that.
also just the visual of this like teenage girl being this kind of really robust angel as well is a really nice change up for how we've seen angels in the past, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. How many tutu angels have we seen?
Mm. Yeah, which is a really nice like flavor flip. I think it's really cool, and to have this on a creature that's potentially the best angel tribal commander that we've seen,
Yeah,
arguably. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, if you're gonna go mono white, yeah,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good pick. I hadn't really sort of looked. I mean, I'm an art obsessive when it comes to this game, and I hadn't really thought too much about the abilities. But you're absolutely right. Yeah, a 2/2 for 2 angel. That's a legendary creature. It's
yeah.
wild. Absolutely wild.
All right, we're about to have a cat crime here, I think. Yep, there we go.
I don't think I've ever seen a cat owner on a stream or any like podcast or anything who hasn't been able to keep the cat away from the
Yeah,
equipment.
yeah. When the first 4 times Rachel Weeks came on the RC stream,
Yeah.
she could not keep her cat out of the picture. She was
I
like,
think it's great since we've all been in like lockdowns and various lockdowns across the world, and things like spell table and playing like over
"Yep,
webcam have become popular for Commander. I just love that there's this like really real world. I'm not even going to call it a problem. Just this real world occurrence that happens that
yeah,
kind of goes like
right."
hand in hand with it. It's fantastic.
Well,
Um,
I gotta tell you that during the pandemic, I think Commander saved Magic,
oh, I agree. Yeah.
and um, and two things saved Commander: Infinitokens and Spell Table.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Like I think that we got through. We saw what was possible.
Mm,
Right? We play. We before pandemic we were playing online.
mm,
Like Olivia Gobert Hicks, Jeremy Knoll. Had relatively popular streams already, but we
mm.
really weren't doing that much of it. And then all of a sudden, it's what all of us were doing.
Oh yeah,
And
100%.
um,
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten to play with people from all over the world. Like, I think I'm up to like 4 different continents at this point that I've been playing with people, and just like meet even people in my own country
right,
where you wouldn't necessarily even like as small a country as England or as small an island even as like the UK. Like the fact that we sometimes don't even play with other sort of peers and contemporaries who are less than 100 miles away sometimes,
right,
and yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. Cool. Well, my first flavor pick is it's represented by the card Celebrity Fencer, which is 3 and a white for a creature elf druid, 3/2 that has the ability Alliance. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on Celebrity Fencer. Illustrated by Inka Schultz, who first time artist in Magic, but has several cards in this set, which is really exciting. And the flavor text: after a brief but memorable incident at her first performance, she was never heckled again. I mean, great flavor text. The flavor
yep,
text team has been absolutely smashing it in this set, as always. Like, it's always been ramped up. But the reason I picked this card is because this card, along with a couple of other examples, like Jetmir and Ginny, who are the Cabaretti kind of signposted legendary creatures, and from the Commander decks, although we're not talking necessarily about the Commander decks today, we're talking about the main set, but Kit Kanto is also another legendary creature.
yeah,
That's Cabaretti. It's this idea of like, we're now, with sets like New Capenna, we're now moving into near enough modern times that we get modern concepts like the concept of celebrity and
yep,
having these anthem effects, or in the case of like Jetmir and Ginny, these like they make tokens and then they buff the tokens effects. Like, these are not new effects to Magic, but they've always been put on things like, I don't know, creatures that are maybe like good orators or inspiring
right.
speakers or bards. But now they're explicitly, it's even in the name, a celebrity. They're pop culture figures, right? Like, and it's funny that this kind of thing never gets commented on. You get people who are kind of the naysayers about like, oh, I don't like hover bikes in my game, or lasers or mechs, like when we had Kamigawa. But now we're moving into this idea where Capenna has like it girls and
Yep.
celebrity culture. I mean, is that something that you worry about in this game, or are you all for this kind of
No,
modernization?
I look forward to, like, I don't need my Magic to necessarily be just high fantasy,
Mm.
right? Like there was probably a time when I was like, the first time I saw mechs in Urza's Saga or something, I was like,
Yeah.
nah. But we've gotten used to it over the years, and now I think just exploring many universes uh,
Mm.
is it's more interesting and fun for us. I think that the the reason Magic is still around nearly 30 years later. I mean,
Mm.
we're gonna celebrate the 30th anniversary next year.
Mm.
Is that it changes, right? If the best deck in Magic was still Brian Weissman's The Deck with the kill condition of the two Sarah Angels that were in it, um, the game would have died a long time ago.
Yeah.
I think that the changing the changing mechanics and flavor, again, like what we talked about earlier,
Mm.
visiting worlds that we hadn't seen before going to Innistrad. Innistrad's not really high fantasy,
No.
right? It's,
Yeah, it's
it's goth
gothic horror.
horror.
Yeah.
Uh, Visiting new worlds, I think, is exciting to me. So I'm not really worried about um, modern concepts. I think the concept of the it girl was around in America 100 years ago,
Yeah. Oh yeah,
right?
for sure. Or
In
even just the idea of celebrity, like Frank Sinatra, for example. A little bit later on, obviously in kind of time period, but these kind of ideas that entertainers maybe had alleged ties to criminal factions or
right,
influence beyond just their entertainment factor is
yeah,
what I think separates them from, say, when we've seen legendary creatures who maybe in the narrative are famed on their plane. You wouldn't necessarily call them celebrities, like how you wouldn't call like Barack Obama wasn't a celebrity. He was
right,
someone who was famous. Do you know what I mean? So I just like this shift into going, look, we're now getting the idea that people are famous because they're famous.
right.
And this is how they're represented with anthem effects, with gathering a crowd, with like making token effects for some of the other cards. And yeah, I think it's a really smart decision and a good
Yeah,
set to put it in as well.
I
Yeah.
100% agree with that.
Yeah. All right. What else have you got?
Uh, I love the flavor of Mysterious Limousine because you can
Ooh,
put
yes.
somebody into it
Yeah.
and drive them around, but when somebody new gets into it, the old person has to get out. Right?
It's really good.
It's it's a 5 mana 4/4 vehicle, but its crew cost is only 2,
Mm,
which is inexpensive. But when it ETBs or it attacks, exile up to one other target creature until it leaves the battlefield.
mm,
And if the creature is put into exile this way, you have to all the other ones that were in the limousine come back onto the battlefield.
mm.
So the idea of this this is a very Art Deco Batman, like early Batman kind of vehicle,
Yeah.
uh, that doesn't even, like, if you look at the art, it doesn't really have wheels. Um, it's got this sort of um, layer of light underneath it that it rides around on.
Yeah, it's almost like there's this limousine, and then there's a hearse, and there's several trains, and they all seem to be running off of Halo, which is
Oh
kind of
yeah,
like the magical MacGuffin of the set, right?
ground up angels, yes.
Yeah, essentially. So dark. It's so fun, but so dark at the same time. I mean, vehicles they've obviously gone ham with. I mean, it's part of like the new standard meta, right? So each set is going to have like this kind of vehicle-y feel, and I think going into the next Dominaria sets over the next two sets, we'll see a lot of
Mhm.
other mechs that will be vehicles, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously gonna see mechanical things
mm.
in Warhammer um,
Oh, of course, as
40K
well.
command.
Yeah.
So uh, if you don't like mechs in your Magic, I think the future is going to be rough for you.
How do you feel about vehicles in general? And I mean, obviously, that's kind of a broad question, but they used to be. I think they were first introduced in Kaladesh, if my memory serves.
Yep.
But they were quite heavy there. And then every sort of set maybe had like one or two, like Eska's Chariot and Kaldheim or whatever else. But obviously, they're like sagas. They're really leaning into them now. I mean, it's bold new space, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a design decision that again changes the nature of the game a little bit.
Mm,
Because there's a time during which your creatures aren't vulnerable to board sweepers
mm,
and targeted removal. That you have to kind of play around these relative. I mean, I think the cost on them is getting cheaper for their value, right? Like the
mm,
crew costs are lower, so you can put smaller people into them, and then they're 5/5s
mm.
or 7/7s or what, they can get
Yeah.
really really large really really fast.
Yeah, I seem to remember Consulate Dreadnought, which I think it was only a common in Kaladesh, but I seem to remember it's either like a crew cost of 5, and then it has a power and toughness of 6 or
Right,
something similar. But like it wasn't much of a value jump, right? Whereas yeah, you're right.
right.
Now it seems to be like really fast. Um, But yeah, I mean, interesting design, and obviously because again these are literally cars now. They're they're the body work of cars and trains, so it's a really interesting thing to sort of see these be introduced in Magic.
Yeah.
But yeah, nice one, cool limousine. Very cool. Like some of these, they're really. I love the way that they're playing around with these like different designs. That's really nice. Cool. My next one up is where am I? Rogue's Gallery. That's it. Which is 2 and a black for a sorcery. For each color, return up to 1 target creature card of that color from your graveyard to your hand. And the flavor text reads: between the 5 of them, they had committed every crime on the books and invented a few new ones. With brilliant art by Matt Stewart. The reason I picked this one, for me, there are several cards in this set which obviously directly reference crime and criminal activity, obviously, because this is like the crime set. But the reason I picked Rogue's Gallery as kind of my card to represent this whole idea, I think it's because it really nicely puts into this way of thinking that each one of the colors in their identity has the capacity for criminal activities.
Yes.
Because the artwork itself depicts a member of each of the 5 families. Obviously, each of the 5 families are 3 colors, and the function itself of returning for each color 1 creature from the graveyard to your hand, which for 2 and a black in the right deck is a mad amount of value, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's so aggressively costed.
Yeah. I mean, if you get 3 or 4, if you can get 3 or 4 creatures that way, it's insane.
That's wild. Like Eternal Witness is like a staple in every green deck, and this just beats this out of the water in any black deck. Like, this is crazy.
Right.
I mean, obviously it's creature, right? So it is limited to creature, but it's still very, very good. But I just love this flavor. When I was talking to Michelle last week, we were talking about how it's nice to see how they've handled the kind of protagonists of this set and the legends of this set being criminals, but not necessarily all being out and out like evil. Like
Evil,
you do
right.
want some sort of nuance in those kind of concepts, and I do like that in the color pie as well. I mean, obviously they've been challenging it all the way since original Kamigawa. The idea that like white isn't always righteous and like just, like it does have like these different like nuances. But I love this reminder again that all the different colors have a capacity for crime, and all the different colors can kind of fit into whatever sphere the plane kind of wants, and it just shows that they're willing to play the color.
I wonder what the laws are like in New Capenna. Like if these 5 families are essentially making the law, are they actually criminal families or not?
Well, it's interesting. So the Vorthos cast with Jen Ellie and Lorelei Weisler-Brizzi, they did an episode where they spoke about the different crime factions across the different planes and what makes an organized crime faction like on paper. And it's the idea that you do need a government that is like a sanctioned government for them to go against. And there are references to the government in New Capenna, and I think a couple of cards that reference the government, like civil servant and things like that. But they just have no actual power, right? And the brokers faction, I think, are as close as to the sort of law as you can get. Obviously, having blue and white in their colors, but they are essentially just a corrupt law firm. So, even within the law, quote unquote, abiding family who are there to kind of maintain order, even they're corrupt and they have to be in this lineup. Obviously the art as well is just a very nice, clear sort of like really sort of iconic image of like what we consider to be crime, like the 5 people in front of a fantasy lineup, I guess, like a police lineup with the grid lines going on the back. Very Usual Suspects, right?
Usual
Like,
Suspects is
yeah,
is
exactly. And obviously there's 5
one.
as well, which really, really works.
Yeah.
Really, really nice, succinct card to represent this set. I don't know, for me anyway.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the idea that you don't have to necessarily be evil in the high fantasy sense in order to perpetrate crime. That there are times that even white violates its own sort of moral code. If white can kill a creature, as opposed to like exiling it with swords or path, white kills. There are things in white that kill creatures, and that doesn't seem as bad as the evil things, but they're essentially doing the same thing, right?
Yeah,
Whether
for sure.
Whether you're I can't think of a white card off the top of my head that directly kill something. But whether it's that or Doomblade, doesn't matter. The result is the effective result in our story is the same.
I mean, you have cards and things like Angelic Verdict and like Condemn, for example, that are
Right.
quite vicious in like their kind of the flavor of how they're removing creatures. Like they're condemning a creature so hard it gets put into their library. Like it's like
Right.
pretty brutal stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
this is obviously them playing with like conceptions of the color pie yet again, which is always welcome. I, don't, I mean, this is just a question off the top of my head. It's a bit of a broad one, I guess, as well. Are there any like colors, pairs, or like tries that you would want to see something else from? Like for me, for example, I like Selesnya has always been on the cusp of being slightly sort of zealoty and cultish, like on
Hmm.
Ravnica and on Theros, the green white combination has just enough kind of self-righteousness that it could start bleeding into like slightly militaristic territory, but the green kind
Hmm.
of pulls it back. Is there anything where you've kind of thought it was lacking in the colors, or you'd like to see colors go next?
I'm a big Orzhov fan,
Yeah, same. Love it.
but like I keep calling Orzhov the only true guild, right? Because it's the only one that actually has rules.
Yep.
Um, uh, and we explored a little bit in Strixhaven, like a different take on white black,
Mm.
but for the most part, and I was lucky enough to be able to design this the Silver Quill commander deck,
Mm.
and I had fun exploring that because again it was kind of uncharted territory. But for the most part, Orzhov is kind of like the treatments of black and white together are very Orzhov, even if we don't want them that way.
Sure.
And I would love to see black white move off into something a little different that, like take some of the black that's um, kind of like black green that like Golgari does
Mm.
in pestilence and and plague and countryside damage and things like that are more natural instead of personal,
Mm.
and pair things like that with white effects to get a very different take on black white.
That's a really interesting one because yeah, like I'm also a big Orzhov player, and you kind of see from whether it's like Ravnica or Ixalan or say Ikoria, Black White seems to fall very much into this self-destructive adherence to a structure, whether
Yep.
that's a religion or like in Ixalan or Ravnica, or say on what was the one I said, Ikoria, where it's like they're slavishly devoted to a militaristic system, even to the
Right.
detriment of themselves. But yeah, the
Right.
idea that if Black takes the lead, then that does flip it on its head. So yeah, that's a really nice idea. Oh, cool. I like that a lot. Nice. All right. Yes, that was Rogues Gallery. Any more for any more?
I Body Dropper.
Mm.
Body
Sorry,
Dropper
you caught me when I was taking a drink. That's a really good card.
is black or red, a 2/2 Devil Warrior. Whenever you sacrifice another creature, put a +1 counter on it, and it has a sacrifice ability. Um, what it does, it costs a black and a red. Um, what it does is less important than the fact that you just get to sacrifice something,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it gives it menace until end of turn, whatever.
Mm.
Is kind of whatever. But the fact that you have the sacrifice outlet, you have something that can drop bodies on command, um, from within your own ranks. By the
Yeah.
way, so if somebody is underperforming, the body dropper is going to show up.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, that's such a clean way of doing it. I do like the inclusion of devils as well. So it's a devil warrior in New Capenna, because demons are obviously a big part of like the lore and aesthetic. But any set with devils is just more fun. I don't know why. Any set which has devils as a creature type just as invariably seems to be more fun than not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little concerned from a play standpoint. I'm a
Mm.
little concerned about creating the devils that deal 1 damage when they die,
Mm.
because it's pretty easy to get somebody in a no-win situation where your creatures are going to kill them, or if you kill their creatures are going to kill you anyway.
Mm.
So, um, from a play standpoint, I'm like, let's not lean too heavy into that. Um, but I agree. I think devils are perfect for a crime society because demons are demons are big and nasty and have sort of aggressive effects on their environments, whereas
Mm,
devils to me are more like the whisperers in your ear and
mm,
are the ones that devils are the ones that lead you to your own demise, as opposed to demons which actively sort of take it away from you.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, excellent cars. I love it. Body Dropper as well. I have sort of a love-hate relationship with kind of pithy magic card names. Like
Uh-huh.
sometimes I think they're maybe a little bit too cute, or like, but there is just something really like satisfying with Body Dropper just being like a really succinct word for it.
Yeah.
The artist Jacob Casper as well is just to make a note for anyone who's kind of keeping track of the art here. Really underrated magic artist as well. Like, it's not a name that gets seen a lot of the times, or at least comes across like my sort of table on like a lot of like big magic artist names, but they've been playing the game for a long time. Regal Behemoth is one of their artworks, absolutely amazing, and one of my favorite soldier tokens from Dominaria as well, something else that they've done. So yeah, check out Jacob Casper, because severely underrated magic artist, I think. On that note, do you have any magic artists off the top of your head? I don't know how much you keep up with artists themselves.
Rob Alexander is a good friend of mine.
Mm.
Um, I would call him like a we have I think we have concentric circles of friendships, and I would probably call Rob in the second or third circle of friendships.
Mm.
Um, and like I love the way he treats lands. Um, there was a time, probably 9 or 10 years ago by now, that when I had maybe when I had 15 commander decks, like all of them had Rob Alexander lands in them.
Mm.
Whatever I could find, it was all of Rob's lands. And he's just a good human being, right? Like, we spent time together. I had him here maybe a year, maybe 2017, 2018, probably 2018. Um, he came, he flew in, stayed at the house for half a week, and we just hung out and talked about art. There was one point, um, he was gonna paint the the reason he came, as a matter of fact, is we talked about, I have a tabletop RPG campaign that's been going since 1987. And I had drawn and collected maps over the years, and then finally just decided to take the, I don't know, 18 by 24 map,
Mm.
and it was a world map, a 2,000 mile wide continent, and start blowing up the maps. I'm not much of an artist. I
Mm.
draw bad stick figures, but I can do I can do trees and mountains on a map. And I took 18 by 24 sheets of paper, like artist paper, and started blowing up the map until I had um, this wall in my. Your listeners aren't going to see me gesturing, but my game room is about 800 square feet. So it's like 25 by whatever that would be here,
Sure.
and like I had the whole 20-foot wall was filled with the maps,
Wow.
and I was gonna have and Rob was gonna come and actually paint it on the wall,
Wow.
and then as we started talking a little more about it, he's like, "Do you really want to paint it on the wall?" Said, he said, "We can just get a canvas and do it." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that seems smarter."
Yeah, you can take it with you then if you decide to go
Yeah,
anywhere. Yeah, for
right.
sure.
And yeah, like pandemic put we sort of lost talking about that,
Mm.
um, and that's a nice reminder. Thank you. I think we're going to have to
No
pick that back
worries. I
up.
mean, yeah, Rob Alexander is just, I mean, obviously he's been with the game so many years. And there's also an artist that has inspired other magic artists, which is, I wouldn't say is a rare thing, but is a notable thing. Like they
Right.
illustrated Ancient Den, right, which was part of the Mirrodin artifact lands.
Yeah.
And Ancient Den, when we spoke to Titus Lunter, and Titus was doing the judge promo for Breeding Pool, the shape that they used for not Breeding Pool, sorry, birthing pod. The shape of the birthing pod is the same shape and is inspired by Rob Alexander's work on Ancient Den. So it's just a really nice, like, sort of legacy that, illustrations from, Magic's history can kind of inform, like,
Yeah.
current Magic promos and things. Really cool.
Yeah.
All right, my last main flavor pick then is Riveteer's Ascendancy.
Oh,
Uh,
such a good card.
yeah, Riveteer's Ascendancy is an enchantment for black, red, green that reads, whenever you sacrifice a creature, you may return target creature card with lesser mana value from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Do this only once each turn. The flavor text is, we are this city, down to its bones, which is a very Riveteers thing to say. And the art is by Svetlin Velenov. The reason this is my main flavor pick is, firstly, the Riveteers are, I think, my leaning towards the family that I think I'm aligning myself with. Just their whole jam, like I vibe with very hard. But also the artwork by Svetlin Velenov is a direct and explicit reference to the photo "Lunch Atop a
Yep.
Skyscraper." Yeah, which is, if you can't picture it in your head, you have, like, if you don't know the name, you will have seen this
Right.
photo. It's a set of, like, I think like a dozen workmen on a steel beam on the 69th floor
Yeah.
of the RCA building in Manhattan in I think it was like 1931. Oh, I'm gonna have to check that date. But yeah, it's a very famous photo, and it was,
Yeah.
I think it was I think I read somewhere that it was a photo op for the people promoting the building, but that was like a real thing that those workmen did.
Yeah.
And the workmen were in true sort of New York style, were from all over the world. I think there were workers from Spain, Slovakia, Ireland, Sweden, I think I read somewhere as well. And this is just absolutely referenced in the fact
Right.
that in the artwork we have a devil, an ogre, two humans, and a Viashino, all of the Riveteers sat on this steel beam of a constructed building, all having lunch. And it's just, if you were to pick a real world photo to kind of represent this family, I think this is the perfect one to do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well, I absolutely agree. They're the people that either make the city work or make it grind to a stop.
Mm.
Right. They're like, I'm not sure I can get to your job right now. Right? I know that needs to be fixed, but
and it's always the people that seem to be like the most under sort of uh, accounted, or like the kind of people that are under appreciated. That's the word I'm going for. That
yeah.
seems to be in any sort of given society, especially in a sort of an emerging metropolis where the kind of profits of maybe those who are in kind of like salary jobs, or like people who are trying to like push industry forward at the top, maybe kind of mistreat the workers who are at the bottom, who are the actual people doing the groundwork. The
Mhm.
flavor of this card as well is maybe a little bit grim. I don't know how you read it, but the fact that when you can sacrifice a creature and then return a creature of lesser mana value from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. I sort of read it as, if you, as the foreman of these workers, drives one of them too hard, you can just get a less experienced creature back to replace them. I don't know if that's how you read it, but
Well,
it's a bit grim.
I read it more as shoving them off the beam.
Yeah. Which is, is grimly glorious, but this card is going to see a lot of play. I'm planning to build a Ziatora, the Incinerator, sacrifice Power Matters deck.
I mean, how can you not be in love with a card called the Incinerator?
Yeah, exactly. The treasures are nice. I know that treasures have become something of a sticking point, a bit of contention in people's reception to the design of the set. Maybe it's a little bit too much fast mana, but that's fine value. But I'm looking at definitely like pumping creatures up power wise and then sacking them to bolt someone in the face for 10 or
Yeah,
something.
no, uh, creature sacrifice outlets are definitely one of my favorite things in Magic.
Yeah.
Right, Goblin Bombardment, Phyrexian Altar, Altar of Dementia.
Mm.
I love having sack outlets. In the early days, it was because people wanted to touch your stuff,
Mm.
right? Blatant Thievery was a big card in the earliest days of Commander, and yeah, people wanted to control magic your creatures, and I'm like, no, get out of here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Nathan, as long-time listeners of this show, so my co-host who's currently traveling at the moment, when we used to play a lot of heads-up Commander, so 30 life total, and just kind of to smash out decks against each other. His big style is blue steal your stuff, which obviously after like maybe 7 or 8 hours of us two hanging out and playing Magic against each other gets old very quickly.
Yes,
So yeah, sacking your own creatures for value is definitely something I'm interested in nowadays. I think that got drilled into me by him playing
yeah,
his Dimir
absolutely.
Steal Your Stuff decks. Cool. Well, are there any other flavor beats that stick out to you, or is that kind of your lot?
Well, I gotta say there. I think there's a flavor fail in the
Mm.
set, and that's the card Sleep with the Fishes.
Ooh, okay.
Because sleeping with the fishes means that you've been killed. Like
Yes.
it's a famous reference from the film The Godfather, uh, and Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes, and
Mm.
the card doesn't. I mean, first of all, it's blue,
Mm.
and sleep with the fishes seems like a very black thing to me. I
Mm.
mean, I get where they're going here. They're creating a fish token, um, but it just doesn't do it for me on the flavor angle. I think a card with this name needs to straight up just murder stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's interesting because they have reprinted some spells that have that much more. I mean, for example, they reprinted murder in this
Right.
set. One black black. I do see what you mean. I think there are some clunky things when it comes to like idioms in Magic when they try and base a card off of like an axiom or an idiom, like sleep with the fishes, where I think they are trying to make it maybe a little bit more interesting and towards the mechanics of the game, but they don't always like reach that, and there can be a couple of misses. I mean, I think that one of my honorable mentions for kind of just the general kind of like, oh, this is an interesting thing that they've done, is that they've added a lot of like mafia style weaponry and equipment into the set, or
Hmm.
things that are equated. So you have things like just looking at the card list now, arc splitter, brass knuckles, and cement shoes,
Right.
where the arc splitter is obviously based on a Thompson submachine gun or Tommy gun with the round barrel. Brass knuckles, you get a copy of it, so you can wear two sets of brass knuckles, one on each hand, and then you have something like cement shoes, where it's equipped creature gets +3/+3 and has at the beginning of your end step tap this creature, where it's like I sort of see what they're doing, and they have to make these cards work in a game, and they can't not have the reference. But yeah, I can see what you mean. It's stretching it a bit, right?
Well, I mean, even if sleep with the fishes turned something into a fish,
Oh, like a
I'd be happy
Frogify
with it.
effect. Yeah.
Right. Like if it was Frogify or the other one mana one, that would be fine.
Mm.
So it just, yeah, like I said, they could have they could have gone somewhere with this, and uh, I'm not loving this card from a flavor perspective.
Yeah, for sure. I think there are cards in each set which kind of fall short of people's expectations of the flavor, which I suppose you could see as being them kind of not hitting the mark well enough. But then you do have to sometimes forgive them, I think, for designing like up to 300 cards. I mean, there are 281 cards, I think, in this set,
Something like that.
something like that. And I think having a couple of flavor fails is maybe not too bad. I mean, on this podcast, especially, just because we look at flavor, I think I get more upset about when they say something explicit in the online stories, and then on the card, it's absolutely not that case.
Right.
But which does happen more often than not, unfortunately. But yeah, okay, Sleep with the Fishes, excellent. I always like to hear about flavor fails because it reveals what people want from the game. That's always very
Yeah, I
interesting.
mean, designing magic cards is really difficult,
Oh,
right?
sure.
Yeah, people are like, oh, I could make magic cards. Well, I think in a vacuum, most people that are big fans could make decent cards,
Mm,
but designing cards to go into a set with a narrative, taking into account the 2 sets before and the 2 sets after it for
Mm.
standard play, and thinking about the environment of eternal formats, because every set is a commander set, right?
Yeah.
So thinking about that, just all the things you have to think about as a Magic designer
Mm.
um, are way bigger than just designing a card, because you have to think about the set as a whole, as a draftable entity, um, how it's going to impact each of the environments that it goes in, and then like for commander sets, for playing in the biodome of the of the 4 or 5 decks that they're building together.
Mm.
So it's way harder than it seems, that
Oh yeah, for
than
sure.
than people make it out. I mean, it was certainly the best job I ever had,
Mm.
um, because but that wasn't just because of the work. That was because of the work environment, right? Just working in Studio X was insanely rewarding, because you're surrounded by smart people, smart creative people, and you know most everybody's having fun doing their job,
Yeah.
and that's a wonderful environment to be in.
Yeah, I can imagine, and I think it shows. I mean, I think Magic. There was a period, I think maybe a couple of years ago, where some people, like, kind of from a design point, were thinking that Magic was becoming a little bit homogenized, and maybe something even down to like even the art styles and the play patterns and things. And I've just sort of seen a real, just from a player perspective, I've seen a real kick up since maybe like around Kaldheim, for example, with the sets they're pumping out now. They're really trying to like do some interesting things, and it is a bit of a shame when I see. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, of course, but it is a bit of a shame when I see people talk about, oh, they're just doing this again, or oh, they're just doing that again. And you're like, you're looking at one card in a set of 300. They do this
Right.
4 times a year just in the main standard legal sets. Like, there is so much going on, and I kind of feel like Magic is going through a real like high positive like ramp at the moment. I mean, people may disagree, but for me personally, I've been really intrigued.
I'm not one of those people that's going to disagree with you on that.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that
Awesome.
I think that they've been great at exploring thematic things,
Mm,
as opposed to, and I think they saw the success of a highly flavor driven set like Innistrad,
mm.
or even before that. I think Ravnica was the most popular set.
Yeah,
Uh,
Ravnica, because it had a really nice hook, like join your guild, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and the fact that there are just kind of cool things that get you intrigued with a set from the flavor perspective,
Mm.
um, has led to very, very popular sets. Like Ixalan was kind of weird with pirates and dinosaurs.
They really tried to mush some stuff together, didn't they?
And I remember somebody telling me, during the design process, they were probably talking about us to us about cards that were going to be commander relevant,
Mm.
and I'm like, pirates and dinosaurs?
Yeah.
Like, don't worry about it. It'll be fine. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I remember the because I buy bundles or fat packs as they used to be called back
Yeah.
at that point, and the box art is obviously like a really nice, cool bit of key art, and just the I saw the box art before I was really aware of the cards that were going to be in the set, and there was Vraska in a pirate outfit with a pirate behind her pointing at a feathered dinosaur running towards them, and I just remember messaging. I think I even messaged Nathan. I messaged him being like, "What? Sorry, what is this set? I've kind of not been keeping up with what the release is. What the hell's going on?"
Right. What the hell is going on here?
Excellent. Well, I think that's almost our time. I'm not going to keep you too much longer because obviously where you are, you have the rest of your day ahead of you.
Yep,
I
I
will
do.
just ask you like just one last little sort of question, looking ahead at this year of Magic, because we're going back to Dominaria twice this year. We've got Dominaria
Yep.
United and the Brothers War. Is that, as someone who's been playing Magic for as long as you excited, or are you a bit trepidatious?
I'm excited, but part of that is having seen some of the designs already.
Ah, interesting. Well, that's a good sign. That's a good sign. That's all right. We'll leave it at that then. Well, Sheldon, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute joy, and I mean, I'm going to say it's been a bit of a dream talking to you because, yeah, said at the top of the show, Commander EDH as a format has been a very big part of mine and a lot of my friends and peers' lives for quite some time, and especially over this pandemic. So thank you to you and to all the work of the Rules Committee and the CAG and indeed everyone. It's it's been really noticeable, so thank you.
Absolutely, my distinct pleasure. We didn't set out to change the world, but here we are.
Here we are. If people, I mean, I don't know how they wouldn't, but if people don't know where to find you on socials or your work, that's not just, talking about Commander, like where are you? What do you do?
You can find me by my name on Twitter and Facebook. You can find me Thursday evening Eastern time on twitch.tv/CommanderRC, where the RC gets together and streams, and then we have for Game 2 a special guest every week. Like as of the recording of this, I think Rachel Weeks will be our guest this week. You can find me on the Commander RC Discord on mtgcommander.net. There's a link on the front page. You can go to the Discord. I think we're approaching 7,000 registered users now, and there are channels for discussing everything from format philosophy to social contracts to things outside of Magic.
Yeah, for sure. I am one of those subscribers. It's one of the few Discords I actually kind of keep up with. There is a Vorthos and lore section as well.
Yep.
And you guys have I've noticed you have very strict but fair Discord guidelines, because obviously big online communities. But you're also really welcoming. I think I asked you guys way back when I first joined it. I was a little bit unsure as to whether I could just kind of post up self-promotion work, even if I wasn't a regular contributor, or the fact that we spoke about Magic lore and not about Commander as a format. And you guys were just like, yeah, sure, as long as you're respectful, go for it. And it's a really good community that is very fun part to be of. So yeah, go check that out.
Thanks for saying so. And then of course you can find me every Thursday on StarCityGames.com writing about this here best format in the history of Magic, like I have for 22 years now.
Wowzers. Well, yeah, amazing. I mean, that's a fantastic sort of body of work, and absolutely all listeners should be going out and checking that out, whether you play Commander or not, because obviously there's a lot of philosophy about color theory in there as well, because Magic EDH is such a format that revolves so heavily around the color pie that you'll get something out of it, even if you are just a Vorthos and you play different formats. You can find us on Twitter at MTFlavoring. That's flavoring with an OUR for any of our US listeners. I do have to remind that sometimes. Emails go to mtflavoring@gmail.com. My personal Twitter is at AndyManface if you want to listen to me bemoaning British politics as they are at the moment. Nathan's is at the Fox and the Moon, and he is currently in Mexico doing very well. If anyone wants to keep up with Nathan, I got a message from him this morning. He's still talking to me about Magic. He's in Mexico and he's still messaging me about Magic news, but there we go. He's meant to be on holiday. And yeah, well, Sheldon, once again, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And all that remains for me to say is thank you so much for listening. This has been Magic Flavoring.